Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
The song that you are currently listening to is called Colorado O, and it is one of various singles from Jesse McLean and the Scotch that you can check out online right now wherever you get your music. Their debut EP, Hold Your Own, will be coming out everywhere on Thursday, October 10th, so be sure to keep your eye out for that EP. And if you want to see Jesse McLean performing live, then you can check her out at the Very Nice Brewing Company in Gilpin County, located at 180 Jankowski Drive in Black Hawk on Friday, October 18th, 2024, starting at 6 p.m.
Riding to fail on winding mountain roads, spring, summer, fall, winter.
Hello there, everybody! My name is Jamie Lammers, and welcome to this week's Miscellaneous Monday edition of the Mountaineer Podcast, where I bring you various topics from across the Peak to Peak area. This Miscellaneous Monday edition of the podcast is not airing on Monday. It's airing a little bit later than that, and I apologize for that. We decided to delay this episode by just a little bit because the subject matter of the episode ended up seeming like it would be poorly timed if we released it when it was originally supposed to come out, primarily because of international events. So I apologize for that delay, but I wanted to bring you this episode when I could, so we just held it off a day, and now it's here. For today's episode, our guest correspondent is joining us once again, and she'll introduce herself in just a second. But before that, I've got a couple of announcements to make. First, there are some upcoming music shows that I wanted to promote that are coming up this week that I didn't know about by the time I recorded last time's music mentions, so I wanted to be able to shout them out now in case you can still go. First, Stephanie Andelman let me know that there is an event happening at Eldora this weekend featuring music from the Sarah Banker duo between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. That event, by the way, is part of the Alpen Run Trail series. It's the Fall Fun Run 5K and 10K. Here is a description of the event. Come challenge yourself at the Eldora Alpen Run Fall Fun Run 5K 10K on Sunday, October 13th at Eldora. The courses will explore the beautiful forested mountain landscape of our Nordic Center, which is normally only open during the winter. With ski and ride season quickly approaching, this race is a great way to kickstart your fall training. Registrants will receive a Mammut item and a retail shop discount, and registration fees will support the Play Forever Fund. Be sure to join us for lunch and beer at Indian Peaks Lodge afterward. Hurry, space is limited, so register today. You can head to eldora.com/activities-amenities/all-events/fall-fun-run-10-13-24. Those numbers are the actual numbers, not the words, just to clarify the URL. From there, you can sign up for registration at the event, which of course will take place at Eldora Mountain Ski Resort at 2861 Eldora Ski Road, number 140 in Nederland. The event will take place Sunday, October 13th. There will be a noon bib pickup at Indian Peaks Lodge and a 1 p.m. start near the Nordic Center. Online registration is required. You will not be able to register on the day of entry, and registration will close at noon on Friday, October 11th. Going to that particular link will also allow you to learn more about the Family Fun Run, which will take place directly after the 5K 10K event. It starts at 3:30 p.m. near the Nordic Center, and once again, online registration is required. There is no day of entry registration, and it will close at noon on Friday, October 11th. So be sure to head to that website if you want to register for that event and get live music from the Sarah Banker Duo. There are two other shows that I wanted to shout out that have been promoted on Instagram, but are not available on the website of the Gold Hill General Store, located at 531 Main Street in Gold Hill. So for one of the shows, I don't have full details for you, but I will be sure to give you enough information to make sure that you can figure out a way to get to the event, and if I end up finding out more details a little bit later on before the show, I'll try and shout them out on the podcast. First, the Gold Hill General Store has announced on their Instagram at Gold Hill Store that Israel Nebecker of the band Blind Pilot will be performing a solo show, and Nathaniel Riley will also be performing there on Friday, October 11th. I cannot find exact times for the performances, but you can call 303-443-7724 to ask for more information about the show or to get tickets. Tickets will be $20 or $25 at the door, and tickets are limited, so you might want to act fast. What's bizarre to me is that the Gold Hill General Store has not announced this event at all. I found this event being promoted by Derek Dames Ole, who will be performing with Something Slight and Silver West at the Gold Hill General Store on Saturday, October 12th. Doors open at 6 and the show starts at 7. It's a free admission, but tips are encouraged. The next event that's listed on their website is not a music event. It is the takeover of the Jungle Bar that starts at 1 p.m. on Sunday, October 13th. But I wanted to make sure I got these two music shows on the podcast in some way. And for my final announcement before we get into the meat of the podcast, it's time for this week's movie at the Backdoor Theater. This week's movie at the Backdoor Theater is The Wild Robot, rated PG. Here is a quick synopsis of the film from the Backdoor Theater. After a shipwreck, an intelligent robot called Roz is stranded on an uninhabited island. To survive the harsh environment, Roz bonds with the island's animals and cares for an orphaned baby goose. I will promote this movie again next weekend because it looks like this will be a 2-week-in-a-row movie. But if you want to see it in its first week at the Backdoor Theater, then be sure to head to the Nederland Community Center located at 750 North Highway 72 in Nederland on Friday, October 11th, starting at 7 p.m., on Saturday, October 12th, starting at 2 p.m. for an open caption matinee, and then again on Saturday, October 12th, starting at 7 p.m. Be sure to head there at one of those showtimes this weekend for a great time at the movies. All right, I think those are the big announcements I wanted to make sure I got into this episode of the podcast. Let's have our guest correspondent introduce herself.
This is the Mountain Ear Podcast, and I'm Maryann Rosen, bringing you stories, history, or lore from or about the mountains you live in.
Cemeteries, places that evoke sadness as they are where many lay their loved ones to rest. They are often also places for peace and quiet, and in Colorado, as in many areas, numerous ones are beautiful places to walk in nature and look at amazing scenery. Cemeteries can also be eerie and spooky, tell stories, and encapsulate history. Today, we will be highlighting the beauty, history, lore, and hauntings of the many cemeteries along the Peak to Peak. Some are the only artifacts left of a ghost town. Others are larger, in towns which still exist, and several are some of the most haunted places in Colorado. However, all are interesting peeks into this area's past. The mines of the Peak to Peak were dangerous and often deadly places to work, and the grinding life of the frontier West was awash in injuries, diseases, and illnesses no longer seen a lot today. Babies and children were especially susceptible to the harsh Western life and diseases. The preponderance of the cemeteries we will be talking about were established after the gold rush brought miners to the area. Many of those buried here moved from other parts of the United States or from Ireland, Wales, England, Italy, Germany, and Austria. Many immigrated from Cornwall after the mines closed there, and a profusion of immigrants attempted to escape the hardship of mid-century Ireland, only to end up with potentially harder lives in the mines. One of the smallest graveyards is the only thing to mark the fact that Missouri City or Flats ever existed. Once the home of 600, in 1860, the town was the headquarters of the Consolidated Ditch Company, which was building the infrastructure for the water supply for the Central City area. Now, a lonely grave of a toddler surrounded by 2 fences, padlocked and rusted closed, is the only proof someone once lived there. There was once a marble marker, which is long gone, though the base remains. A simple wooden marker gives the scanty details of the child's life. Clara A., daughter of D.E. and S. Delaney, July 5th, 1865, aged 1 year, 5 months, and 12 days. Sadly, many babies' gravestones dot the hillside of the Idaho Springs Cemetery. Originally organized in 1860, the current cemetery has existed since 1874 after the original cemetery flooded. Also known as Pioneer Cemetery, it is a breathtaking place sitting on a hillside alongside Chicago Creek. If one can get to the top of the hill, not only can one admire the cemetery itself, but the scenery of gorgeous trees, vegetation, and mountains. The Alvarado Cemetery in Idaho Springs, built in 1865, is another graveyard one can visit in the town. Still another ghost town cemetery to visit is the Caribou Cemetery. Located near Nederland, 10,000 feet above sea level, most of those buried here are from Cornwall. When the Cornwall mines closed, many came to the U.S. and went west with many others during the gold rush, only to die underground or see family die of scarlet fever or diphtheria. At Caribou's height of activity as a silver mining town, the area had hotels, saloons, restaurants, a church and school, and many businesses and residences. Caribou was decimated by fire, wind, and snow over the years, and the population eventually moved away. The cemetery was full of intricately carved gravestones until the harsh environs and vandalism took their toll. The last known burial of the original acreage was in 1898, and although the cemetery was neglected, those buried there were not. By 1952, though, only 14 names could be read on markers. The cemetery underwent some renovations and some new fencing was placed. 7 more burials occurred after that since 1958. Currently, the cemetery is once again being cleaned up and restored. The town of Netherland Cemetery dates back to 1873, when it was situated where the Catholic Church now stands on Highway 119. In 1895, the current location was designated the new site, and 29 bodies were relocated, including those of the 3 children of the Richards family. Today, the cemetery is a historical site while still remaining an active burial place for local families. Russell Gulch, established in 1859 when William Russell discovered gold and a town was built at the head of the gulch to serve miners, is now a ghost town. Russell Gulch was called the Equal Opportunity City because females had the same rights as males to hold mining claims. Those who lived there are buried in the pretty and peaceful Russell Gulch graveyard, where beautiful, nice quality stones tell a story as you wander about. One of the oldest cemeteries in Colorado is Black Hill's Dory Hill. This city of the dead is home to pioneers, soldiers, departed relatives, and friends of miners and soldiers, many of whom are buried in unmarked graves, though a memorial to them stands on the site. Its earliest stones date back to the early and mid-1800s. The city of Blackhawk purchased the cemetery in the mid-1900s. Dory Hill is gorgeous in the spring with all of the flowers blooming. An exquisite place to walk while reading the headstones of those who have passed is an interesting and pretty way to while away an afternoon. The first of our cemeteries that includes a spectral presence is the Bald Mountain Cemetery in Nevadaville. Sitting on a high hill in a remote location, the graveyard was written up in the 1961 Caroline Bancroft book, Unique Colorado Ghost Towns and Mountain Spots. Within this city's environs lives the ghost of Bald Mountain, Estelle Slater. His photograph on his tombstone has been remarkably protected throughout the merciless Colorado weather for 100 years. On moonlit nights at certain angles, one can see Slater standing in the darkness, giving onlookers a real fright. The glass on his grave makes him glow. While looking for him, locals say to be careful not to awaken the Green Witch. If you smell rotten flesh, run. The witch appears in a misty green fog and places maggots at your feet. Now we head over to the Central City area, where an incredible number of cemeteries exist, with over 60,000 buried in this little area. Most of the named graveyards are clustered together, several under the umbrella of the Central City Cemetery. But somehow they all have their own unique personalities. It is here that we also find the eeriest and most bizarre happenings. Centuries-old grave markers dot the meandering hike through aspens in the Central City Cemetery. Features include black iron gates, footpaths, and tall grasses. The spot is magnificent, especially in the autumn. Above the graveyard is an overlook from which you can see across the valley to the west. Created shortly after gold brought a rush of miners into the area in the early 1860s, with mining comes injury and death, and many of the original miners are buried here in family plots. The cemetery is also the burial ground of cowboys and their families who died during the Wild West era. Considered one of the most haunted places in Colorado, with creepy stories sure to chill you to the bone, the cemetery was mostly used from 1884 to 1913. There are many reports of strange sounds, fast-moving shadows, and bright flying orbs. A couple of notables buried there are Ferdinand French, a former mayor of Central City who died in a hotel explosion in Denver, and also relatives of Ida Cruz McFarland, who helped in the revival of the Central City Opera House in the early 1900s. There are many stories of other residents buried there. Charles Chaz Engdahl, who died instantly in 1907 inside a mine in Russell Gulch when a series of dynamite charges he was tamping 1,600 feet below ground exploded. 12 miners who died in the Sleepy Hollow mine and William Reynolds, who died from miner's disease, are also buried there. In the Freemason section, Robert and Catherine Cameron are buried. The Cameron family owned the original patent on the Coeur d'Alene mine overlooking Central City. Their son, John, was popular in town, but died suddenly in 1884. A mysterious woman, thought to be his heartbroken fiancé, came to his grave after his death and placed columbines. She now returns every year in April and November, and in her unearthly form she places flowers on John Cameron's grave. Her shadowy figure appears, places flowers, and disappears into thin air. The Masonic area is straight out of an old Western film, overgrown with desert grasses. Central City was a mining town turned gambling hotspot that welcomed plenty of colorful characters over its history, some of whom still reside underneath this hallowed ground. One can see why it's considered one of the most haunted spots in Colorado. In the same area is the Redmond Dodge Cemetery. There is no marker noting its existence, and if it were not for the few headstones scattered around, you would never know that this cemetery housing members of 17 families even existed. The Oddfellows, a fraternity promoting friendship, love, truth, faith, and charity, and whose purpose was to visit the sick, relieve the distress, educate the orphan, and bury the dead, had their own cemeteries in Central City. The Independent Order of Oddfellows of Central City and the Rocky Mountain Independent Order of Oddfellows No. 2 had tracts of land set aside in which they could be buried. There are many unmarked body mounds along with a potter's field of sorts for the poor of Gilpin County. Central City pioneer Joseph Beeman is buried here, and there is a small limestone cabin marking the Walter family children's plot. There have been many accounts of ghostly spirits lurking between this cemetery and the Knights of Pythias graveyard. Nestled among aspen trees with wide paths through the forest, it is a peaceful area and lovely walk. Some of the gravestones are in disrepair. The Knights of Pythias was founded in 1864, and this cemetery is home to its members' dead. Often gifted a sword as a new member, many are sleeping underground, their swords at their sides. An old mining structure remains on site, and Tesla balls adorn the fences, a nod to Tesla, who built an experimental station in a nearby town. The burial site is worth exploring. Body mounds curve skyward, and according to some, mysterious specters lurk among the grounds. Cell phones go on and off and abruptly die in the area. Perhaps one of the ghosts is Thomas Hooper. Born in England, he died at age 22 in the United Gregory mine when a block of rock above him gave way beneath an ore cart and he was crushed to death. Or perhaps it's George Stroll, a musician in a U.S. military band during the Civil War. The most frequent account of a phantom, however, is a woman who is not from the mining period, but from the 80s. She wears a brightly colored red and teal tracksuit, has short brown curly hair, and no face. Visitors claim to encounter her on the grounds in the corners of the tree lines. She materializes and just as quickly vanishes. It is also rumored that 3 so-called witches are buried beneath unmarked concrete graves. Despite the fact that there are other cemeteries not mentioned, the last one we will speak of is the largest one in terms of space. The Catholic Cemetery has a lot of graves that are visited regularly and has a glorious mountain background. All are spaced out in the wild, unmanicured landscape in the meadows, aspens, and pines. Like a lot of 19th century cemetery, there seems to be a disproportionate high number of graves marked for children aged 2 months to 13 years old. Also buried here are 2 men, William Vine and Sebastian Zane. Both men drowned in the Bates Hunter mine in 1885 after an explosive charge caused the shaft they were in to flood. After their demise, there were claims that their ghosts had spared 2 miners from certain death, one from an explosion and one from an accidental fall. It was also reported that during a cave-in at the mine, all endangered miners managed to escape, and each one said that they had seen Vine and Zane holding back the crumbling walls and roof of the tunnel until the miners were able to run out unharmed. Helpful spirits with superhuman strength. All of the cemeteries in the area are spectacular, gorgeous places to walk, especially in the autumn. Their pathways are wonderful places to walk and hike. During Halloween, they are popular places to roam. Reading gravestones imbues one with a sense of history for the area. Annually, this year being this past August, the Gilpin County Historical Society holds a cemetery crawl. One can step back in time and hear the stories of those who lived and died in the county. Local history buffs portray those who now call the many, many cities of the dead in Gilpin County home.
Listen in next time to the Mountain Ear podcast for another mountain tale. I'm Maryann Rosen. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much to Maryann for coming on board and joining us for the podcast, bringing us another awesome segment. Once again, she'll be back for her regularly scheduled Mountain Tales segment in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, if you want to share this episode or other episodes of the podcast with whoever you see fit, then be sure to head to the mtnear.com/the-mountain-ear-podcast or to the mtnearpodcast.buzzsprout.com to share an easy link around with whoever you want. And if you want to be featured on the podcast in any way, shape, or form, whether you're a member of the Peak to Peak and want to be interviewed, or you have a segment that you want to contribute, or you have advertising that you want to contribute, then be sure to email me at media@themountaineer.com and we will get something sorted for you. I'm going to let you guys know something right now. Trying to schedule things for this particular week of the podcast for some reason has not gone to fruition. There are plans that I am trying to make happen, but they have not been completely cemented yet. So I have a very strong feeling that you will only be getting 2 episodes of the podcast this week and not 3. I don't think I will be able to cobble anything together in time for the regular Wednesday episode of the podcast that we've done for the last couple of months. So unless you end up getting a surprise release sometime before Friday, expect that the next episode of the podcast will be the weekly Music of the Mountains episode as expected this Friday. I am very excited for that particular episode of the podcast. It has been 2.5 months in the making, actually, so I am very excited to finally be able to bring it to you. I will see you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Broken limbs falling down, 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 down. You're lost in your head, helpless. I watch you drown, drown, drown. Gray light drifts through my window.
The song that you are currently listening to is called The Only Way Out Is Through, and it is one of various singles from Jesse McLean and the Scotch that you can stream online wherever you get your music. They'll be releasing their debut EP, Hold Your Own, on Thursday, October 10th, so be sure to keep an eye out for that EP's release. And if you want to see Jesse McLean herself performing live in the Peak to Peak area, then you can check her out at the Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 180 Jankowski Drive in Blackhawk on Friday, October 18th, starting at 6 p.m.
I see your strength, I see you searching for clues. Lift your eyes up, love, to the moon. Just believe and you'll break through. Crashing on you from afar, like why, waiting for you to respond. I might die, tattooed on.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.